So when it comes to protein, even though we're saying have some protein with every meal because that helps to balance your blood sugar levels, we don't need a massive amount. And actually you need to be careful with animal protein, because animal protein is actually quite a dirty fuel for the body to burn, and it creates an acidic waste which the kidneys have to get rid of. Now if you do have meats, I would say maybe no more than 2 or 3 times a week, and try and go for organic, outdoor reared, grass fed. So you want really good quality meats. It didn't used to be such a problem in this country, but unfortunately farming is getting more and more intensive. And when animals are fed a grain-based diet, that puts too much omega-6s into the meats, and that can further imbalance our omega-3s. So just be mindful with that. When it comes to chicken, chicken does definitely need to be organic, I think for ethical reasons as much as anything else. We do get a bit honed in on the breast meat, and I think a lot of that harks back to the low fat days, but it's actually in the legs and the thighs that are a really good source of nutrients, especially minerals like iron. So I think a really good way around that is to get a whole organic chicken, because it's much cheaper that way. And one of my favourite ways of cooking a chicken is to do it in the slow cooker. So if you top it with water, put some veggies in it, maybe some bay leaf and peppercorns, what you're effectively doing is cooking your chicken and making some stock at the same time. So I'm kind of assuming most people haven't got time to boil up bones at the end, but actually in the bones is a really good source of nutrients. It's a source of protein that's already broken down, and they're very nourishing, healing nutrients for your digestive system. So especially if you've got digestive issues, stock is really, really crucial. And what I tend to do is just strain it off, pop it in a pan and put it in the fridge, and then any fat will come to the top and you can easily remove it. So I've got a silicone muffin mould, so I find it really helpful to pour the stock into that, and then it freezes in nice little blocks which you can add into soups or stews, risottos. It's just a really good way of getting extra nutrition in. So eggs are a really amazing source of protein. So you want to keep the eggs whole. I know separating the yolk from the white used to be really popular on high protein diets, but it's actually in the yolk where a lot of the nutrients are, especially B vitamins. Now the whole eggs and cholesterol thing is a bit of a myth. In actual fact, most cholesterol is made in the liver. So if someone's got cholesterol issues, I'm more interested in what's going on with their liver. The only thing I would say with eggs is it does come up quite often on intolerance tests. And also, if you've got a sluggish digestive system, don't overdo the eggs because they can be quite binding. Otherwise, for most people, 5 or 7 a week is, a pretty fair number to go for. And I think even really good quality organic eggs are cheap, considering you can make a breakfast, a lunch or a dinner out of them. So they're a really useful thing to have in the store cupboard. And if you hard boil them, do quite a few at a time, because they'll last in the fridge for about 5 days. So then you've always got something to chop up onto a salad or onto a pita bread, or just have on its own as a snack. So eggs are really important. And then fish, we've already spoken about oily fish, but you've got your white fish as well, and your shellfish, so they're all really important for variety. And then dairy produce. Dairy produce is a good source of protein. There's a couple of issues with dairy. I would say if you are concerned about hormonal cancers, you might want to consider avoiding dairy because it is higher in hormones. The other issue with dairy is that some people struggle to digest the lactose, which is the milk sugars, in which case you won't be good on any of the dairy, whether it's cows or sheep or goats. The other issue is the protein size. Now, if you imagine a cow is a great big animal, so the protein structure of the milk is quite large and it's quite hard for our bodies to break down and digest. The sheep and the goats are much smaller, so the protein size is much more similar to our own. So from a digestive point of view, they are much better. So things like feta and halloumi, they're quite good vegetarian sources of protein. And the way they're packaged, they've got quite a decent shelf life. So again, a useful thing to have in the fridge. When it comes to milk, we are so lucky that we can get other alternatives. So, experiment, try goat's milk, try nut milk, try coconut milk or oat milk. maybe just vary it up a little bit. I do think it's worth getting organic milk and trying to get it unhomogenised where possible. I'm sure you all remember when we had to take milk out the fridge and just give it a little shake to mix the cream in. Well, that's what they do when they homogenise it. The problem is this changes the structure of the milk, and to be honest, we've got no idea long term what effect this is going to have. So it's just a few things to take a look for, really. Now when it comes to yoghurt, yoghurt is big business, and really you need to walk past all the Actimels and the Activias and head towards the full fat organic natural yoghurt. So you want to go for the full fat one, because when they remove the fat they have to stabilise it, and they usually put starch in to stabilise it. And of course, as we've been learning, starches aren't really that great. And to be honest, we do need the fats because we need the fat soluble nutrients, and the full fat is just much more satiating, and to be honest, it tastes a lot nicer as well. So head for that. If you like Greek yoghurt, you know, it's fine to vary it up. I think with the Greek yoghurt they just use a different culture to start it, and certainly with the normal yoghurt you're getting the Lactobacillus acidophilus and the bifidobacteria, which are the two key bacteria that we need. So soy is often used as a vegetarian protein supplement. So I would say you really need to stick to the fermented forms of soy. So things like the tofu, miso, tempeh, they're fantastic. And that's because the Asians in their wisdom know that the soybean is very hard to break down and digest, and fermenting it makes it much easier to digest. What I would like you to stay away from are things like soya milk and soya yogurts. And that's because with milks, you know, you're just having it in a bigger quantity, and the soy does contain quite a lot of estrogens in it, and we've got a massive problem these days with hormone imbalances. So certainly any woman premenopausally definitely needs to stay away from soy milk, so do explore the other milk alternatives. And then you've got your vegetarian sources of protein. Now your body can tolerate any amount of vegetable sources of protein. So this is what I'd like you to really focus on and really try and maybe expand your cooking repertoire. And if some of the things I've mentioned in this talk are things that you're not really used to, a really good resource is to go onto the BBC Food website, because you can do a recipe search by ingredient and, you know, find some different things to try. Now the peas, beans and lentils are fantastic. I do find that some people struggle with the beans, and that's because they contain quite a lot of starch as well. So even though I try and avoid using too many things in tins, I do think the organic beans that are tinned in water can be helpful, because some of the starch has leached into the water, and then you can rinse it as well, so you might find it's just easier to digest. And they are a really good way of bulking out meals and adding fibre. Now the lentils I find are much easier to digest, and the orange lentils are really good at thickening things. So they're great for soups, they're great for sauces. So you're going to make a curry based sauce with some coconut milk, pop some lentils in it, and then you're thickening the sauce and adding some protein at the same time. And the pui lentils, which are the slaty grey ones, hold their shape really nicely. So they're brilliant for a more vegetarian salad. And then you've got your nuts and seeds. So don't forget, nuts and seeds are a really good source of protein as well as good fats. And that's another reason why having some ground seeds or nuts sprinkled onto your breakfast really helps to add that protein and fat content to a meal that otherwise tends to have maybe a bit too many carbohydrates. And do look out for the sprouted seeds, because when they're sprouted they become little powerhouses. The nutritional content increases by about 50 times, and that's because they've gone from something that's dormant into a living thing. So you want to get them when they're about that big, when they're just showing the first leaf. The kind of king of the sprouts are broccoli sprouts, and you can get the seeds to sprout yourself if you go on to skysprouts.com. So you can buy sprouts that are already pre-done for you, or you can get the seeds and do it yourself. And it's such a good way to add lots more nutrition to your diet.